Hello and welcome back to another edition of Ask Mike Any BPD Question. And this is, of course, the Reversing Narcissistic Abuse YouTube channel, and I am Mike. So I'm going to respond to a very interesting comment that was left. And it brings up a lot of really good subjects having to do with sponsorship and healing from narcissistic abuse in general. So let's be clear who I am and what this channel is about. What we do on this channel is I help specifically people who have been in or are currently in narcissistically abusive romantic relationships. My specific my specific experience comes from having been in a romantic relationship with somebody who had untreated, undiagnosed, severe borderline personality disorder. And she was a, quote, quiet borderline. There really is no such thing, but anyway, just to give you an idea of my background on this. And so I started this channel because if you watch the very first few videos that I made, I had just gotten out of that relationship. And I was in severe emotional trauma. I was wanting to delete myself. I was alone in a foreign country, in a town I didn't know. I had moved there and rented a house for this woman. And, you know, of course, when everything was beautiful and I was already there and we were blah, 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 she did what borderlines do. She split on me and dumped me to the curb. And it was absolutely devastating. Now, the relationship had been devastating for a while, but thankfully, I made the decision. It was a very difficult decision. It was probably one of the most difficult decisions I've ever made, but because I've been in recovery, 12-step recovery for a long time, I realized that this was the only thing that could be done, and I made the decision to go completely no contact with her, meaning that I would make it impossible for her to contact me, and that I would then work the 12 steps on this relationship, which is exactly what I did. I went to CODA, and they did the thing that they normally do, where they say you have to go to 6 meetings before we'll sponsor you. And I already was part of another 12-step program, so I knew exactly what to do. And I talked to somebody in that program and I said, I need you to sponsor me through the steps about this relationship. And I did, and within a couple of weeks, I was cured. Now, if you're new to this and you don't have experience in the 12 steps, it might take you longer than a couple of weeks. But here's what I do on this program is I share my thoughts and my experiences, but those really are meaningless. What is most important is to get you in the state of readiness to be willing to do the required actions that will bring you relief from your illness, which is codependence. If you are in a relationship with an abusive person, or you came out of a relationship with an abusive person, by definition, you are a codependent. I don't care if you like it or not. If you don't like it, stop watching this video and go somewhere else if you want. If you want to get healed, follow my directions. So I'm very clear. I leave very specific directions on how to heal. And those directions are, first off, they're free. They don't cost you anything to do these things. You can do them from anywhere. Anywhere in the world, if you have access to internet, you can do these things. And they're guaranteed to work if you follow directions. Worst case scenario, even if I'm wrong, and this won't cure you of the trauma from the relationship that you're in, you will only benefit. You haven't lost any money, you haven't lost any time, you haven't lost anything. So the people who don't follow my directions, it's because their addiction to their pain is preventing them from simply making some very simple, direct actions. Now, what I've said from the beginning is if you follow my directions, and I didn't make this up, by the way, but if you follow my suggestions to the letter, I guarantee you that you will be cured of the traumatic pain that you are experiencing in relationship, in connection to the relationship that you're currently having a hard time dealing with. So, what are those directions? Very simple. There's a link below. So you go and you click on that link, ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. It's going to take you to a website. Don't screw around looking at all that. Don't look around for everything. I read all the stuff on the website. Don't do that. Go and find an online Zoom meeting and go do it now. Get to a meeting today. When you get to one of those Zoom meetings, you are going to raise your virtual hand and you're going to say, I am new here. I need a sponsor to take me through the 12 steps. You will then be given somebody will contact you. You'll get an email, some kind of contact information. You will then contact that person. You will say, I want to work the 12 steps. That person will then take you through the 12 steps. You have to be sponsored by somebody who has already been through the program, who has already been through all 12 steps and was sponsored by somebody else. And if you follow those directions to the letter, you get a sponsor, you work all 12 steps under their guidance, you then seek to sponsor somebody else. And you sponsor somebody else. When you do that, you are guaranteed to be cured of the pain and the craziness in your head. Your life will take a completely new track, and you will be cured of the pain perhaps within weeks or months. And if you keep following the 12 steps and you keep doing that throughout your life, you make it part of your life will continue to get better and better and better. So those are my directions. If you do not follow those directions, I cannot guarantee that you will have complete results. So am I clear on that? I used to recommend that people go to coda.org, and the reason I don't anymore is because, again, in order to get the healing, you have to work the steps with a sponsor. And Coda is notorious for not sponsoring. And I don't know why that is. It's none of my business, but I know that ppgrecoveredcodependence.org, that 12-step group, I believe was created because Coda is so lax on sponsorship. You know, the 12-step group that I first started working my recovery on was very different. When you walked in the door, if you were new, people would smother you. You'd walk in, they'd say, do you have a sponsor? I'd say, here's my card. Here's my phone number. Give me a call. And they would say, is anybody new here? You'd raise your hand. And they say, how many people here can sponsor? Okay, you see these 6 people? Go talk to one of those people. Those people would wait till a break. They'd walk up to you. They'd give you their number. They'd say, I want to sponsor you. Completely different mindset than Coda, which says you have to go to 6 meetings. And then even after the 6th meeting, people have a hard time finding sponsors. So this to me is part of a severe codependent mindset, which makes sense why it's just endemic in that group. I'm not saying that there aren't good Coda groups and that there aren't great Coda sponsors and that there aren't people who have continued to heal and are in recovery. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just one of the problems with Coda. So now I recommend people go to ppgrecoveredcodependence.org. Okay, so you get it. The subject of this video is you have to be sponsored and you have to work the steps with a sponsor and then sponsor somebody else. If you don't do that, there's a very good chance that you're going to get conflated in the program. You're going to think you're going somewhere and you're spinning your wheels, or worse than that, you're going to end up in a just repeating codependent tendencies and habits within the 12-step fellowship, but you won't really have, complete recovery. And so there's a difference between the fellowship and the program. The program is working the 12 steps. So you can be by yourself at home while you're writing out your 4th step. You're now working the program. When you go to a meeting and you're surrounded by people and you're sharing and you're listening to people share, you're part of the fellowship. That's not the program. Going to meetings won't cure you. You might find some good things in it. You might find some fellowship and some fun. Fellowship is when 3 or 4 of you get together and you create a support group. And you, once or twice a week, you go out and you drink coffee and have French fries, and you sit around and you talk and you share and you bond and you support each other. You create a new consensus of reality. That's the fellowship. That is not the program. If you work the program and have fellowship, boy, you're bulletproof. If you just do the fellowship and you're not working the steps, you are absolutely you're a problem waiting to happen. You're waiting to regress, because the steps are the only bulletproof cure. Right? I made myself clear? So with that in mind, I'm going to read this comment that somebody left me, and then you'll see where this is going. So this was in response to a video that I made, which was called, let's see, where did it go? Apparently I'm not speaking English. Why codependents can't hear what I'm saying. And it was a video I made basically saying what I've said now, which is, why are people coming on here and asking questions about, their borderline this or their ex that or their partner this, or, why do borderlines do this? Or if I do this, does the borderline? And I'm like, you guys aren't listening. The only cure is when you work on yourself and you work the steps. Now, was I frustrated? No. Did I maybe punch up saying, you're really frustrating the crap out of me? Or I might have said something like that. It doesn't mean that it's not annoying. But do I take any of it personally? No. I know that people are codependent. I know that codependents are wrapped up in an addiction and they're not rational. And so of course they act like that. This is a method to wake you up. This is something you don't find in a lot of codependent groups, because codependents tend to be, their ego tends to be very fragile, and they can't tolerate feeling like they're being criticized. So I think that's one of the main things I would say that is an issue for me when it comes to Coda and codependent groups, is that, they walk on eggshells and then people get away with all kinds of craziness. And I have experience with this. I was in my fellowship, you can probably guess which one it is, but I was in my fellowship for, I think, 5 years before I even started working the steps. And then when I didn't do the 4th step according to how it was written in the Blue Book. I did it according to how I heard people talk about it, which sounded like, writing this big giant novel about what happened to me and my mom this and my dad that. And so I took this to my first sponsor, this big old novel, and I read it to him, and he said, well, I guess there's no such thing as a wrong 4th step. And that was it. Now, I didn't gain any recovery from that. It's because I wasn't doing a 4th step, which is about listing the resentments and looking at my part, etc., etc. So I just stumbled along until my next sponsor. And I did the same thing with him. I wrote down another 4th step like that. I gave it to him, and he listened to it, and he said, that was really great what you just did. He said, but that's not a 4th step. He said, here's a 4th step. And he opened up the literature, and he said, the 4 columns, that's a 4th step. And that's when my recovery really began, was when I did that. And again, that's what a sponsor is there for. They have experience in the actual recovery of the program. That's why you need them, because when you come in, you don't know anything. about recovery. And you may conflate the fellowship for the program. Happens all the time. It's a way that people unconsciously resist looking at themselves and growing. All right? So I just want you to know I have experience on both sides of this. So I don't judge anybody for making mistakes in their program. Having said that, just because people are sincere and make mistakes doesn't change the fact that if they don't take the proper medicine, they're not going to get the recovery. So it's not about being a good or a bad person. Just like when you're ill with some kind of illness, it's not about being a good or bad person. It's about getting the right medicine. So the medicine is the steps, period, end of story. Got it? All right, so with that, I'm going to read this comment and then I'm going to talk about it. So this comment says, and by the way, if you're the person who left this comment, I hope you understand where I'm coming from. Anyway, we'll get into it. So the person says, in response to my video, apparently I'm not speaking English, why codependents can't hear what I'm saying. This person says, Mike, I can hear your frustration in this video. I'm going to read it. It's a long comment. Read the whole thing. Mike, I can hear your frustration in this video. Take this comment in the tone of co-sponsorship, if you are willing. Otherwise, please delete now. Why care how others comment, react, or whether they follow your advice? He says. You are speaking your truth. Is the energy you spend on trying to help those who don't want help healthy and making your own life better for you? For what it's worth, your 12th step work for me brought me to Coda. I'm assuming they mean the videos. My group didn't really do sponsors, so on the sole basis of your advice, he says, I started a co-sponsorship group with 3 others. The miracle in my life occurred for not only me, but each of them. We've been asked to speak at regional meetings, and this has reached now dozens, soon to be hundreds, of other codependents seeking help. The point is, he says, why give a crap about whether people follow your advice? Know that there is a higher power that is in control of what happens. And you can't imagine the impact your message has made already. It has truly changed my life beyond anything capable of describing in words. I am now capable of being myself and am an entirely different person. My experience with BPD/NPD was truly demonic and continues to be, kids involved. Yet I am now truly thankful for it. I needed to hit rock bottom to change. Almost 2 years into recovery thanks to your message. I am so truly grateful for everything that happened. Not that you should care about whether or not you helped me, but it has been truly miraculous. Thank you sincerely for your virtual shares. There was a higher power working through you. All right, so first off, let me just say to this person, first off, thank you so much for the kind words. I do appreciate that. What's most important to me is that people get themselves healed. The whole point of this channel is that once you find the steps and a sponsor and you start working it, eventually you won't need to come back to this channel. So first off, thank you for the gracious words that you said about me. And you're right, I don't have any attachment or ego about any of that. Continuing with that. So remember what I've said. My advice has always been, find a sponsor who has worked the steps and who is going to take you through the steps. I have also said, and I've been clear about this, that if you get into a group and people aren't sponsoring, get out of that group, find another group online or in person, and find somebody who has worked the steps and will sponsor you. That is a very doable thing. And that is why I've been very clear about that. Because again, what is important is that you find a sponsor who has worked the steps and can help you. Because if you don't do that, there is a huge risk that, like I said, you will get conflated. You will get into a place where you conflate the fellowship with the program, and you will not fully be able to work through some issues. Listen, the meetings are very healing, and they can be very healing, but the healing that you get in meetings, I'm telling you, is temporary. There are people who just go to meetings and they don't, the recovery doesn't kick in. The recovery you get in meetings, the healing, is temporary to put you in a state where you can think clearly. You're in a consensus where people are operating from a different level, and you go, oh, I have to do the work, and then you work the steps. The meetings themselves don't bring any lasting deep awareness. They are the pause in the storm that allows you to gather your senses to know, I got to take action. So I am going to meet you at your where you've come at this, because you say, take this comment in the tone of co-sponsorship. So what that means is that you have taken it upon yourself in this moment to do what you believe is sponsoring. You believe you're sponsoring me in this moment by giving me some advice. So I'm going to take that as well. So let me just say right off the bat, hopefully I've made the point clear by now and you understand where it's coming from. There is no such thing as co-sponsorship. It doesn't exist. That doesn't mean you haven't accomplished a lot. It doesn't mean that what you've gained isn't valid and isn't real. But there is no such thing. What you're calling co-sponsorship is the fellowship. And co-sponsor, if I hear what you say, according to you, that your group didn't really do sponsors, so you started a co-sponsorship group. Now, first off, I don't know what that means. Your group didn't really do sponsors. Either they did or they didn't. So either there were people in the group that sponsored, or you literally went to every single person and every single person shot you down and said, I haven't worked the steps and I'm not going to sponsor you. So that, again, it's not clear. The fact that it's kind of an unclear message leads me to believe that you didn't really seek out. Now, I could be wrong. Maybe you're just downplaying it. Maybe you sought out everybody in that group. Is there somebody here that's worked all 12 steps who can sponsor me? But it sounds like you didn't do that. And then you go on to say that you started, that you created, you came up with the idea that you were going to create a co-sponsorship group in lieu of sponsorship. Now, you didn't say, I couldn't find anybody to sponsor me, so three of us got together and we decided we were going to dig into this and we were going to sponsor each other until we found sponsors. If you had said that, I would have said, okay, that sounds pretty good. And then you say, and then a week later or 2 weeks later, I found another group and I found a sponsor. You didn't say that. So it sounds like, what this is this is your codependence acting up. So let's be clear about what codependence is. Codependence is when you get your validation from anything outside of you. Specifically, the kind of codependence we're talking about, your validation will come from fixing others. And so you've now, in your first in your first sentence there, your first short paragraph, which is like 3 sentences long. You've already shown 3 very codependent traits that would have been eradicated had you had a sponsor who had worked the steps and had taken you through them. Because again, let's be clear. 3 of you got together, co-sponsorship group, you started it, and by your own admission, you hadn't worked the steps yet, and you hadn't had a sponsor to work you through the steps. That would be the equivalent of deciding you were going to go into the Olympics as a boxer. And instead of, looking around your neighborhood and saying, oh, there aren't any boxing coaches here, so, me and my friend are just going to get together and we're just going to duke it out and we're going to try and figure out how to box. And then we're going to go and we're going to start, we're going to go to the Olympics. Well, the end result is obviously, you're going to get destroyed. Because in order to be a champion boxer, you need to have experience, and you need to be trained by somebody who has real experience and knows, what the deal is. That's what you've just said. You've just said that I walked in, I didn't know anything, nobody helped me, so I decided that three of us were going to get together and we were going to sponsor each other. So, when the first thing you say is, I can hear the frustration in this video. I can hear your frustration in the video, you say. So right there, I know that you're going to try and fix my frustration, which is what you did. You go on for 3 huge paragraphs talking about how I shouldn't be frustrated and I shouldn't care what people think. So first off, again, here's your codependence is coming out, because I don't need any counseling. I'm not frustrated and need help. It was a way for me to make a video, to make a point, to be helpful. Did I think about it afterwards? No, it wasn't anything that bothered me. If you were sensing some frustration, it was just me explaining my thought process. But even if I did, let's say that I was frustrated. The fact that you needed to fix that is a problem. And let me explain this. Again, this is something you would have learned by working the steps with a sponsor who had experience. This would have been one of the first things that you would have learned. Because when codependents try and fix others, try and fix them out of their feelings, in their mind, they think they're helping them. Their conscious mind is, I'm going to take the pain away from this person. I'm going to take on the role of the counselor and I'm going to fix their pain. And what's really underneath that is the inability to allow people to have their feelings. So, if somebody's frustrated and you care about them and they haven't asked for your help, you either leave them alone or you can do this. You can say, well, it really looks like you're frustrated and it feels like you're in a lot of pain. I'm really sorry you're going through that. That sounds tough. Period. That's it. You have now given them the right to have their feeling. You have shared your desire to help, and you have given them something loving. You haven't devalued them. When you go to talk somebody out of their negative feeling, even if you're right or otherwise, you're devaluing their state. It is abusive. You're saying, you shouldn't have this feeling. Here, let me talk you out of it. So right off the bat, the first sentence tells me you haven't worked the steps. Now, I don't know. You say you co-sponsor. I don't know what that means. You haven't mentioned the 12 steps. You haven't mentioned your journey in the 12 steps. So I don't know what that is. Now, you then say, take this comment in the tone of co-sponsorship. As I said, there's no such thing as co-sponsorship. The way sponsorship works is that, of course, in the meeting you walk in, and just by walking in the meeting, you are setting up the inference that you are willing to take direction. So if somebody comes up and says, hey, I want to sponsor you, can I sponsor you? Do you want to be sponsored? You can say yes or no. But to drive up on somebody who hasn't asked, and you assume the role of sponsor, right there, again, you're in what's called, unsolicited advice, which is abusive. It's something that recovered codependents don't do. So you take this on when you say that you're going to fix me and my feelings. But it goes even beyond that, because you have decided that you are going to bring me into a relationship that you call co-sponsorship. What you are doing here is you're not sponsoring me. You are giving me advice. You are counseling me. I haven't asked for that. So sponsorship has nothing to do with counseling. So if you think that the role of the sponsor is to sit down with the sponsee and listen to their problems and then to counsel them out of their problems so that they feel better, again, you don't know what sponsorship is. Sponsorship is primarily solely taking somebody through the steps after you have been through them. Does that mean that your sponsor won't give you advice? Of course it doesn't mean that. A sponsor can give advice from their experience, but that's secondary. Sitting down and having some kind of a psychological, psychiatric, I'm feeling this, I'm feeling that. Here, let me talk you out of your feelings. Here's what you need to do. You don't worry about what they say. That's counseling, and that's not sponsorship. I'll just tell you, when I sponsor people, people come up to me, and if they ask me to sponsor them, I say, yeah, I'll sponsor you. Here's my number. Now, here's how this is going to work. You call me when you're ready to work a step. Don't call me when you're upset. Don't call me in the middle of the night. Don't call me when you've got a problem. Don't call me when your girlfriend breaks up with you. I am not your counselor. I am not your friend. I'm not going to drive you to the airport. I'm here to do one thing and one thing only, and that is to work the steps. But you have to decide. When you call me up and you say, I want to work step 1, I'm going to be there. Outside of that, if I see you in meetings and we create a relationship and a friendship, great, whatever. But that's not what I'm here to do. So what you're describing right in the beginning, you're describing co-sponsorship means that you've taken it upon yourself to give me advice, unsolicited advice based on what you see, because you see me having feeling and you feel the need to fix me from it. And that need to fix somebody's feeling is a very codependent thing, and it's abusive. Now, you don't think that. You're thinking wonderful. But the truth is that their discomfort is making you uncomfortable. That's why you have to fix it. And that's where you get your validation. The codependent gets their validation from feeling as though they've taken away somebody's pain. And what is that? That's what you were taught to do as a kid. That's what you were taught to do, trained to do in a relationship. So all you've done is you've taken that and you've brought it into the fellowship. So people in the fellowship can be very codependent, and again, you don't mean anything negative by it. You honestly think you're doing something good, but the truth is that you're acting from your own need to get validation by fixing others. And again, listen, codependents have their own narcissism. They have their own grandiosity. So taking it upon yourself to talk me out of your perception of my frustration is grandiose. Taking it upon yourself to create this destructive, confusing relationship of co-sponsorship, because how does that work? If I'm sponsoring you, it means that I know something you don't, and I'm going to teach you based on my experience. You don't get to then turn around, as the boxer and then tell the trainer, how to box. It doesn't work like that. That is a very destructive relationship. And if a boxing student were to do that, it would show tremendous grandiosity. So the grandiosity, just in the first 3 sentences, tells me that you don't understand the process of healing. Again, I'm not saying that you haven't made a lot of progress. I know you have. I can hear it and feel it. But I can also hear the grandiosity. I can hear the discomfort you have with other people's feelings. I can hear the need that you have to be validated. How else do I know that? Because you go on to do something that I've never heard anybody do. I've been in recovery for over 40 years. And that means I've interacted with people who have spoken. I've spoken. I mean, I speak here on my channel a lot. But the only time you hear me brag is when I say I've been in this program for over 40 years. I have worked the steps and I've cured myself of the pain of this relationship. But, there are people that go around and speak, and they're called circuit speakers. And it's just something that they do. But the ones that have sobriety, what they'll do when they speak is they'll go, I want to thank you for allowing me to be here. Maybe something I say will help somebody, but I'm only here for myself. If you ask them, they won't volunteer. It'll be very unlikely that they're going to volunteer how many meetings they've spoken at and how many people they've helped. And so when I hear this about that your co-sponsorship group has been invited to go to regional meetings, and then you tell us how many people you've reached, and you imagine soon it's going to be hundreds of people that are seeking help. I don't hear anything. I hear something that concerns me. And it concerns me for this reason. You're being asked, apparently by CODA, to go around and talk about co-sponsorship. Because the group of you are going to clearly get together and talk about we co-sponsored each other because nobody would sponsor us. And then I imagine you're going to launch into how this type of sponsorship is really good and really helpful. And the thing that worries me, I mean, that shows grandiosity and a lack of understanding of, and that's okay. We all make mistakes. But what concerns me is that CODA thinks that's a good idea, that the people in CODA want to co-sign this and they want to elevate this. And what you're doing is you're telling people who are afraid to sponsor and afraid to be sponsored and afraid to work the steps under somebody else's sponsorship. You're telling them it's okay. You haven't worked the steps, you don't know the program. Just get together with 2 or 3 other people that don't know the steps and haven't worked the program and sit around and counsel each other on your feelings and talk yourself out of, fix other people's feelings and all of that. That's what I'm hearing. Now, maybe I'm reading too much into it because I've never heard it. Like I said, I've never heard successful, really people that have really deep recovery go around and brag about how many people they've spoken to. I've never heard that kind of talk before. And the thing in it, the thing inside of it, as I said, is it feels like you're saying that you've created this new method of recovery that you call co-sponsorship. And I'm sending the message of co-sponsorship to the world. And I'm here to tell you again, right off the bat, you did 3 things that people in recovery don't do. They don't try and fix people's feelings. They don't give unsolicited advice. They don't have, again, the grandiosity, the presumption. It's extremely presumptuous of you to suggest co-sponsorship to somebody who, according to you, pointed you in the right direction, and because of, according to you, my 12-step work got you in the right place. It's extremely presumptuous. I mean, it comes across like a violation. I feel violated. And again, bad boundaries. It's codependence. And the hubris and the grandiosity of look at what I've accomplished without really, following directions. And then the whole time saying that because of my directions, this is where you went. And I never directed that. I never suggested that you start your own co-sponsorship group. I would have never done that. I never have, and I never will. So it's okay. Maybe you misheard me, and that's okay. People make mistakes. But again, if you had followed my advice when you went around, as many people have, they've said, I've tried to get a sponsor. This is how I know not to suggest CODA anymore. Because people have said, I've tried to get a sponsor in CODA and nobody would sponsor me. And now go to PPG Recovered Codependents. Thankfully, somebody turned me on to them. I'd never heard of them before. They said, I went there because CODA is notorious for not sponsoring. So anyway, I'm starting to babble here. So anyway, my friend, I really do respect what you've accomplished. And I acknowledge that you have accomplished a lot. But here's my suggestion. If you value my suggestions as much as you say, and you don't have to do anything I say, by the way, but if you value my experience as much as you say, then in the tone of co-sponsorship, I'm asking you to get a sponsor. Stop this co-sponsorship thing. Get a sponsor. And I would recommend going to PPG Recovered Codependents, go to a meeting and just say, I need somebody to sponsor me, and start all over again. I've gone through the steps multiple times, over and over again with different sponsors. It's a very, very powerful thing to do. So I recommend that all 3 of you in your co-sponsorship group do that. Get sponsors who have worked all 12 steps with a sponsor and work with them. And then see if you feel the need to talk people out of their feelings, if you need to give unsolicited advice, if you need to co-sponsor people who haven't asked you to do that. See if that stays with you after you've done that suggestion. There's other things I can say, but I'm not here to beat you up. And anyway, my only desire for this channel is to give people, again, it's not about making people feel good. I'm not here to make anybody feel good. In fact, I know when I tell people the truth, the bitter medicine, they mostly don't want to hear it. That's okay. I don't have any attachment to this channel. I don't. You can tell because I'm never here. I usually come here when I'm bored and I got nothing else to do, or if a comment like this comes up and catches my attention. So anyway, that's it, my friends. Thank you so much. Again, if you want to heal, click on the link below, ppgrecoveredcodependence.org, and get yourself a sponsor the first day, and make sure that sponsor has, and ask them, say, my advisor asked me to ask you if you've worked all 12 steps. Because if they haven't, say, thank you very much. I'm going to go find somebody who has. And when you found somebody that has worked all 12 steps that wants to sponsor you, you take their advice. And their advice is going to be work step 1, 2, and 3, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I'm repeating myself, so I'm going to shut up. That's it, my friends. I love you all very much. If you're interested, I invite all of you to come to the live guided interdimensional meditations, which I do every Wednesday and Saturday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. I do it on my other channel, which is Thunder Wizard. So you can just go to @ThunderWizard here on YouTube and show up. You can also, if you can't make the live meditations, you can go to the live tab on the YouTube channel and click on them. There's a ton of them there. Thanks, guys. Take very good care of yourselves. I will see you all later.